really just a public.
All right, David, welcome back. We got another great episode, another beautiful day here in paradise. And once again, we've got a lineup for some really great people that are going to start joining us. We were just talking about Eric, and if you want, we can, now that we're recording, go into a little more detail. He's a busy guy, so I'm hoping that he'll be able to jump on.
Yeah, great. Well, hi, Sean. Once again, thank you for your dedication in making this all happen here. Um, you mentioned Eric today, by the way, is January 9th on Wednesday. Yes, the 29th on Wednesday in the year 2025. So, we try to keep these episodes to 1 hour. We don't have any editing or any censorship or any like script. We do our best to stay in the present, in the moment now, which is 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 0 seconds. So we're going to be talking a little bit here, just go back and forth with some updates and, follow-ups maybe until Eric jumps on. And once he does, then basically here's the format, just like other guests. Sean and I are just becoming aware of really Eric. I mean, I'm a little bit ahead of everybody because I was the one that invited Eric. So obviously I try to do the best that I can when I'm communicating with this. I'm not saying high level caliber, whoever you're communicating with, you have to win them over. you know, that's why the World Impact News WIN, is going to and resonate with the whole world. And 8 billion people are going to be part of WIN, just like CNN or whatever. People are going to say, are you on WIN? Did you see the 10 o'clock episode yesterday on WIN? And if you didn't, it's a time capsule. Go back, review that episode. And when you do so, like we said, the creativity about WIN is that it's a win for you. It's not a cost. So 1 hour segments, we're going to try to keep it specifically to an hour, just like a regular program, like a 60 minutes program, so that we're on a schedule. We can supply like a digital TV guide or a viewer's guide or however you want to describe it, like a manual so that people can see, because it's going to be real time. So it's kind of like, being on the floor in a stock exchange, New York, Sao Paulo, London, or Tokyo. Well, not so much in Tokyo anymore. They did without the floor. And it's funny. I asked the question. I think, Sean, did I ask you, how many people work at the Tokyo Stock Exchange? Did I ask
One?
you that? That's correct. I asked you that question because it came right out. Because now
Yeah,
you remember, it's like, yeah, that was crazy.
that
But
is crazy.
anyways, it's like, or even if you like in Grand Central Station or any other busy, even an airport, you got to go to the board, and sometimes the gates are changed and everything, and it gets a little bit crazy, but it doesn't need to be like that. I mean, we can logistically predict the movement of everything because now we have that technology, and that's what we're talking about the transformation and the evolution of our human consciousness and our cognitive behavior, and that is already done. And people like Eric, hopefully, he's going to jump on. Like you said, Sean, you, me, everybody that's probably listening have other things that they could be doing as well. And so to get the attention of some of these people is not an easy task, and
No.
it's taken me years. Like Dr. Sandra Rose Michael, for example, I haven't pushed it with you, but man, I've sent her, I'm Facebook friends with her. So, I get pictures of her son and her travels and all of the things that she's doing. I know everything, not everything. I'm not like stalking her or anything, but I know enough about her, you know, to be intimately aware that this is a perfect win-win-win for her, you, me, everybody, Dan Winter, everybody. It's not just our clique or our tribe. Our tribe is planet Earth and maybe other planets that we've already been to, but we did it in the future, but now we can connect with them. And so it's all in the moment of now. There's really no past and no future. There's only now. And it's
Yeah.
0 hours, 0 minutes, and 0 seconds. So that's what we're doing. Right now, we're already 10 minutes in today's show. And like I said, we're going to try to be diligent and really wrap these up in a 1 hour or thereabouts. I don't think anyone's going to argue with us if we say 1 hour is one time coin or one time credit or however you want to look at it. It's a unit. of measurement that you can bank. Once you have a one, you can bank 8 billion or whatever. But you need to start with the identifier, which is one. And so that's what we're working on is very simple concepts. And actually, I wanted to just mention, like I said, every day I'm sending Sean, and you know this, you have a record of it. Try to keep that. Don't do the disappearing messages and
Oh,
stuff.
I'm
And
not. No,
and
not at all.
also and also and vice versa with me and you, because you're sending me names and stuff too. Not as often because you have other things to do. I'm not doing anything. I'm like retired, bro. I don't travel. I don't go to the grocery store. Like I said, most people like you, Sean, today, or even Eric, going to make 5,000 or more decisions, 5,000 or more. Okay. And so and you can do it because now you're trained, you're disciplined, you're devoted, you're passionate, and it's not a job. It's like you said yesterday, you're like 14-hour day or something, which isn't unusual, but most of the time that requires, like in the city, like Sao Paulo, you're on the train and you're you're not really productive. You're just trying to get to where you need to go, you
Yeah.
know? And now we have these technologies. We already showed there's really no essential jobs. There's really nothing that should send an emergency to our community that, oh my God, like a bomb alert, or jump under your table. We don't live in that society. And if we're not like schizophrenic, we need to change that, you know.
Mhm.
So, the fact is that, these technologies, and we talk about, like, for example, you had mentioned on Friday, I believe, if I'm correct, we're going to be speaking with Unitree. Is that a secured meeting
That
with
is,
Dan and
yes.
Michael?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
David
that's the type
Cunningham.
of right, and that's the type of meeting, Sean, that's taken 5 years. 5 years. I had one meeting with Michael and Dan, and sometimes when you meet with other people, it's very competitive. It's not really meant that way. And I'm not going to be specific in one way or another, but the conversation really didn't end very well because I was like, let's end the BS and let's act. We need manifestation. We don't need any more anything. And these people are very intelligent. Not just that they're more intelligent than anybody. We're all equal, but they're in a position where they're inventors and around people like in our circle. One of those 1.5 billion people, they know a lot of those people, and they have these carbon credit bank, and they have these other instruments that can actually take natural resource, convert them into economic revenues and stimulus, so that you can make investments with women-owned businesses, home-based businesses, minorities. Primarily, we want to really encourage people that are in the dumps.
Mhm.
Basically, that the future right now, Sean, the whole message that I'm trying to send, you can buy your future. Now we know you can even get in the library and see your future. So what are you going to buy? You're going to come out of the library with that channeling, that energy, that inspiration. You're going to stay in the moment of now. That's basically all you need to do. You don't need to buy anything. You don't need to do anything. That doesn't mean you're not going to have perfect health, perfect wealth, and you're going to be able to express yourself perfectly. That means that you're going to thrive. You're going to thrive. Just being now. It sounds crazy, but it's so simple. It's not like Nike, just do it. And it's not like the idea of inertia, which I always believed as a kid. Inertia said, just keep going. Even Martin Luther King and everyone, Napoleon Hill and all these other people that we speak about, motivate, and Tony Robbins and others, keep going. The mountain, it doesn't exist. But if you feel like you're Atlantis or whatever, pushing the stone up the hill, just turn around, let the stone go down. you know,
Yeah.
let it go down the hill and then follow it, enjoy it. Hopefully it doesn't kill anybody. The stone doesn't exist, actually. We talked about that. So in your life, if you're in any type of disease or disease, or you have an illness, or you don't feel perfect, and it's easy. Perfect means you don't feel anything. That's 0.00 absolute. That is the most perfect place you can be. Doesn't get more perfect than that, because nothing really exists and everything exists. So it includes 0 and 1. And that's the power of what we're talking about here. I don't know, did Eric pop on, or by any chance?
I'm not getting any response from him. I did try to call him, um, and hopefully he will. But like you said, I know he's a busy guy. So we had a couple of text messages back and forth last night, and he sent me that link that I sent you and said this would be the subject matter that we could speak about. And I said that's perfect. So like you said, he's wearing a lot of hats and has a lot going on. So we'll see where that.
And it's really only 15 minutes into it. So, the culture here in Sean is interesting. Have you ever been to Brazil or South America, by the way,
I have not.
yourself?
I mean, Mexico and down to Cabo and Tulum, and that's probably about as far south that I've gotten.
Yeah. Well, the culture here, when you set any meeting, if it's an hour late, it's actually on time. If you come here like on time and you're like an American like me that's trained to be like 7 minutes ahead of the interview, usually that's what you want to be. You
Yeah,
want to be in the office before your competitors get there. And when they come in, you want to greet every one of them in the waiting room. When you're like in Trump International, for example, I'm speaking about these large scale projects where they invite these designers and architects and what have you, people, different project people, and you got to compete with your competitors, the other people that are out there shaking the bushes. It's an interesting world. But here in Brazil, if you're 7 minutes early, bro, you don't even get in the building. You know what I'm saying? And then you got to pass through security. Every building here, you have to show your security ID. So, I mean, I'm not going to call it totally communist or an obstruction of my rights. I mean, you don't have to track me down like that, like a dog, but they want to make sure there's criminality here, and they can track everything. That's the whole point, Sean, right now. With the dead matrix, you are dead. And you're more valuable to them dead than you are alive. So, in a country like Latin America, you need to be safe because people do get kidnapped and they do get tortured and held for ransom and stuff like that, and then usually murdered even after people pay. But
yeah.
and it doesn't happen that often. But these are the types of stories that go under the carpet, and I'll mention it specifically until hopefully Eric jumps on. Um, do you know Tom Althouse? The name Tom Althouse.
It sounds familiar, but I can't put a pin on it.
Okay, one of the people I sent last night was Tom Althouse's "What's Up" and information to you. He is the writer of the Matrix movie.
Oh,
It
wow.
wasn't, yes, it wasn't called the Matrix. He wrote the whole script, and Hollywood took the script from him. And then they murdered his two kids. He had three boys. They murdered the first two. So the third one, I believe, and I'm not speaking from my heart right now, so I'm not like a library database or anything. I just feel for Tom seriously, and so basically now he's been trying to get justice. I mean, it's not the money. It's not. You can look at Tom Althouse on YouTube. He's been on like Rosie O'Donnell, I think it O'Connell, Rosie, the Rosie Show,
Yeah.
which is probably his most prominent, testimony of what happened in his life. And they're talking about making a documentary film about what he experienced. And what I'm talking with Tom about is, yeah, that's a great description of what we're trying to not overcome, but what we're trying to soften. We want parallel opportunities. We want choices. So Tom was able to channel kind of the worst of the worst situation. It's like a red or a blue pill. You got to take one or the other. If you don't take it, we're going to kill you right now. I mean, it's like in prison or a mental institution. If you don't take the medicine, you're in a straitjacket and they're shoving that shit down your throat or putting an IV and you don't have a fucking choice when you're imprisoned or confined. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And
Hmm.
and so Tom was he has been he's from LA area. So I know you just mentioned before we got on this recording that you spent a lot of time in Southern California, and we have that in common. So the thing we're just still getting to know each other also. And
Hmm.
some of the coincidences even are just going to be like so mind-boggling. But it's wonderful mind-boggling. You shake your head, you laugh, and you're like, "Oh, here we go."
Yeah.
It's like a roller coaster ride. Put your hands up. Ah!
Yeah. That's pretty much it. I just saw that movie again about 6 or 8 weeks ago, The Matrix, and I don't know where my headspace was when I saw it the first time. I think it's been honestly probably 10 years since I saw it. But when I saw it this last time, I'm like, oh my God, man, these guys were so far ahead of their time. I mean, like, and I mean, it's almost like time travel, but these
It
guys,
is.
like the amount of knowledge that's being disseminated in that video and that movie is mind-boggling. Not just the reality of what things are, but all of these metaphysical and spiritual. I mean, there is a lot of stuff that's woven into that script. It is mind-boggling. And when you really are awake and you really understand it, and probably for me, 10 years more of knowledge and data assembled in my brain, I'm really picking up a lot more of it this time around. And I was like going, okay, I got to rewind that and watch that again. I think I
Let me
told,
throw another movie. I don't mean to interrupt, but there was a movie back, I think in the 70s called Tron, Tron. Did you
yeah,
ever see Tron?
that
That
was a
was one.
Disney movie.
I don't know what it was, but when I didn't understand anything in that movie when it started and
I
when I
didn't
ended,
either.
I left the movie and I was like, a guy's driving this motorcycle like a
Through a
crazy nut.
computer or something.
Yeah, yeah.
I
He's taking
still,
his he's taking his physical body and injecting it into the matrix. That is not a good idea, people. Okay, the only way you go in there is you got to disintegrate to the plasma state. And when you do
yeah.
that, it doesn't hurt. You don't get any pain. But if you go on a motorcycle, like some of these crazy people on the road, you see them. I'm sure you do there in
Oh yeah.
Richmond and other places. Man, they driving so fast down the freeway. It's crazy. I don't know if the cops are chasing them or whatever, but that's dangerous. When
Oh,
we
it's
go in
super
the fifth
dangerous.
dimension, when we go into the fifth dimension, you're not material. You don't want to be material, but we have the power to come back. See,
Yeah.
that's the trick.
Yeah.
That's the trick. And that's the magic. And when you do that once, you never have to be asked to do it again. You just volunteer and you stay there in point zero zero absolute as long as you can. And if you come off like this call, for example, we don't have a schedule. This is like I said, no script, and so Sean and I, in the moment's notice, you could change and say, what about 2 o'clock? What about 5? What about not doing it? So we're fully flexible, and that gives us the voice, the perfect expression. It is perfect. It's music. It's film. It's literature. It's all of the arts combined, and that's the message. Getting back to Tom, I communicated with Tom, and I commented on one of his posts, and it wasn't a real like a negative. I didn't like slam it in the guy's face type of thing, but he was taken back, and he contacted me and basically barked at me like a pit bull in the front yard. As you're walking down the sidewalk on a public space. So for me, I kind of I don't want to run into conclusions with people, but I offered you Tom Althouse's number. If we could get him on the show, I've talked with Tom about us creating the living matrix. So he knows the dead matrix. He was the one that was the channeler, and he was groomed in Hollywood to do that job. And actually, he was actually maybe even going to be the president of the United States. That's what the level of his grooming. And so, but when they basically he had issues. You can imagine coming out of Hollywood with this blockbuster, script. The guy's totally professional in production, executive production. When he could have his own like Warner Brothers studio or any studio. The guy is a brilliant genius, and that's why he didn't fit in with the group, whatever the Illuminati, the whoever Masons or whoever was behind all of that. It was a small group, and they took it upon themselves and punished the crap out of this guy, because he was just trying to get any artist is going to protect their work. And
Yeah.
that's really the issue right now with AI and the things that we're talking about with super intelligence. And now Google, I don't know if you saw, but Google just said that they're already like in the quantum, they're already broke that barrier. And I believe it. And I'm saying that it goes to the time crystals, Sean. These time crystals even beside you, those crystals are wonderful. They carry vibration and whatever, but that's not what a time crystal is. A time crystal is at the 0.00 absolute field. It's not the 0 point field. It's the 0.00 absolute field. And that time, there is no time. It's warp speed. You can go from 0 to infinity instantly. And then you can, it's like an elevator. It's like a vacuum shaft. It's called an accelerator. And that's something that Eric talks about. And that I'm mentioning that word accelerator. He works with the Trump administration. I don't think he necessarily voted that way. It's just they're the ones in power. And actually, Trump is trying to do some pretty good things. And he's in the Appalachian Mountains and in the coal mining area. And so he's going into communities that are basically like ghost towns now. Or they're still mining and people are dying with, respiratory and whatever other problems and alcohol and whatever. It's like an Indian reservation on most of these gold mines. It's like a slave camp. I mean, I don't know any worse. You got to crawl in the ground and spend all day, doing that. Any mining. And that's what hopefully Eric can come on. If he doesn't, we actually have this as a great recording for an introduction so that when he does come on, he realizes the nature and the seriousness of what we're talking about and how this is all woven together. This is not just me contacting Eric to be on your show, Sean. This is the manifestation that everyone is asking for. And it's going to take a concerted effort. And like Jesse Howe said when 2 episodes, I believe, ago, Jesse was on, and he said he was dedicated 9 months every day, every hour. And he was doing these high energy, high vibe love tribe events, which during Hibernation Festival, by the way, we're going to have a high vibe love tribe portion. And that's what he does is when he comes in. He's like Tony Robbins with some on the stage. Tony's jumping up and down, doing gymnastics, and I mean, that guy. If he can't motivate you, you're unmotivatable. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And getting back to Tony, that's where Dr. Rose Michael comes in, Sandra, and you and the equipment that Tony has in his house is mind-boggling. Yeah. I mean, the first person with the U.S. med bed was probably Tony Robbins. He's got every device in there.
He does.
And also, he's unique as far as a consultant because he doesn't go one way or the other. He doesn't promote Democrat or Republican. And he doesn't care really about politics from what I know. I mean, he's never even mentioned anything in any interviews that I've seen him with. But that's the whole point. It's like Jesse is like a Tony Robbins. But he doesn't look like Tony. He looks like me, or maybe you're bigger than I am, stronger. But I'm a weakling. I'm like a little baby compared to like Tony. Tony's a big guy.
Tony's a big dude. Yeah, he's big.
Yeah. And so if at some point if we have that trusting relationship, if we could go, I'm not saying through, but with Dr. Sandra Rose Michael and get Tony involved for this hibernation festival. Even if it's an impromptu, if he comes on your show and he has a 1 hour, man, that's going viral. That's going viral. And so a date with Destiny, we can do our own date with Destiny as a tribute for that week. The first annual Hibernation Festival is in honor of Tony Robbins and the work that he does and all of, not just his, his books and all of the motivation, but just as a complete human being and a rich guy. I think he's, I don't know, $60 billion or something. It's a lot. He's not as wealthy as, Elon Musk, or you don't need to be. I mean, he's got over 150 companies, I think. These are big. They're not like too big to fail because he understands that. So he keeps his enterprises lean and mean in the moment. So you're producing, you're earning your value. You've got lifetime, employment with his organization. If you're sucking it up and a leech, you got about 2 seconds. You get your stuff off your desk and get the hell out and don't come back. Yeah. So there's a couple of other. So what basically I'm saying to you right now in public is that, if we can weave, we're going to have to weave this really very tight, very strategically and surgically. in order to really maximize. But even if we just create just a garment with holes in it, I don't really, at least it's a garment. People are going to say, yes, they did a festival. Yes, they made the efforts. The first annual, we don't have a budget of $1 million or anything like some of these other people are proposing. So we're going to work it on hopefully a zero sum zero marginal cost, which means you don't spend any money, I don't spend any money, nobody does, and then we get the all benefit of an economic stimulus here, increase in tourism for that 1 week every year, the week before Carnival. So it is like a tourism, a regional sustainability tourism program that typically a municipality does. Like our tourism department here, you would think that I could call them up and actually get their support. Not. Not. In Brazil, if you don't pay, you don't get service. And I mean pay to grease, that type of pay.
Mm-hmm.
And I never greased in 27 years. I never greased. So this event is really a very large scale event as far as public relations. And also, in one of the interviews, I spoke about guerrilla marketing. And that's important because right now, this morning, another person, I haven't given you this person, that's what his company's name is, Guerrilla Marketing. And he's here in Brazil. And so it takes time for me to actually connect the dots. I get inspiration and I really have to go with the flow. So like my day is mostly like a passive and silence and grounded. But when I get into the phone, I'm like concentrated. I go right there. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the type of power that we all have if we're in the present moment. If we're distracted, you're not going to get those messages are going to be cloudy. And then you're going to get confused because you're hearing kind of contradictory things. I shouldn't, And so then we're off balance. And when somebody's trying to control you, like in a fight, like a cage fight, and I was with the death squad, not directly, but with Coach Donahan in New York. And the death squad is a group of people that Coach teaches how to end in the circle in 20 seconds. Everyone is in a submission hold. And he's got the most number of champions. Anyways, basically what we're trying to avoid is any aggression or any like revolution or any type of resistance. Some people say, oh, fight, be a warrior and all of that. Actually, we don't necessarily, we want to stay at that neutrality. We don't want to be the warrior, but we don't want to be the wimp. We don't want to be the bully, or we don't want to be bullied. We want just the neutrality where we could just be ourselves, live our lives. There's no reason, Sean, rest in peace, for example. It irks me when somebody dies and they say, I hope that person rests in peace. And then usually I say to the people, if I know enough about them, I say, what did you do during their life for them to rest in peace? You basically screwed their whole life up and now they died and now you're going to wish them to rest in peace. What we need to do is ask people here, let's rest in peace before you go away. And then when you go away, you're going to be in a deep, deep sleep and you don't need to come back. You're not going to have any anxiety that you missed something.
Mm-hmm.
So let's rest in peace. That's the purpose of the World Impact News Network, the WIN network. If everyone wins, we don't have a stress of looking like a loser because there's no real judge. We are our own judge. And with the technology, we already talked about the technology that you have there, it's up to the person. If the person wants to live perfect health and live forever and get younger, they'll do it. If they don't, and they don't have the devotion and they're not going to put any effort, no. Because there's so many, it's not that, like in my life, for example, Sean, I don't do anything and I told you I get more productive. I had to learn that. When I was sitting on my butt and people would come over to me, my wife especially would say, nobody deserves not to do anything. And I said, well, I'm going to try it. I'm going to try to be the first person. Right. And so when you're in silence and solitude, that's why like normally I'm here on the island alone. So I don't have any of that like interference or distraction where people are trying to get your attention and sell something or, debate an issue or have a conversation. I mean, have fun, hopefully. But normally it's pretty serious. We're mentioning world impact news type of topics, which aren't right now very good.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, that's the point with the Hibernation Festival. we are going to do a guerrilla marketing. And I say we, and it's primarily me. And I feel that if Tokyo Stock Exchange can run all of the Asian markets with one person, I can put on a freaking 8-day, 7-night event alone if I need to.
Hmm.
Okay. But I thank God I don't need to. And as time advances, because I guess my angel, my guardian angel or guard or God or whatever motivation for me to be the person that I am, I guess I passed, basically, is what I'm saying, Sean. I guess I passed the test finally at 60 years old. I've been trying to do this since I think about 4 is when I first mentioned that, oh my God, this world, we need justice. This is at 4 years old or so. I asked to go to school early. And my foster mother was like, you can't, there's laws that, if you're born after a certain time, you gotta wait. And I said, this kid ain't waiting. Call the officials and get me into school. And so she did. So I ended up going to school at like 5.5, I guess, or 4.5. I forget. It was a year before. I was supposed to like wait a whole year. And then I would have been like the oldest in my class, but I ended up being like the youngest in my class. To make a kind of a long story short, which is humorous, and Eric's not here with us, so bear with me. Basically, my personality, I wanted to go to school. And when I went to school, Sean, you know what happened?
What's that?
My first day of class is normally very nervous for most kids. Most kids cry in their locker and they're like, oh, my mommy. And they're like, they failed separation disorder or something, right? And I get into that class, bro, and I sat my ass down right in the front chair, in the front. And everyone else ended up coming in. And then the teacher came, I'm forgetting her name, and I don't hold this against her at all. Because I really tested the system from day one. Really, I've been classified as very dangerous, very dangerous. Not because I'm an assassin or anything like that. The danger is that I have freedom and I have liberty and I know what justice is and I know what the U.S. Constitution, the value of these things are, and that makes you very dangerous. And normally people take people like me out in like Tom Althouse, for example. Getting back to Tom, the work he did, and then he's trying to sue for hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, that was a blockbuster Matrix, 6 billion or 8 billion, or I don't know what it is. And Tom got shafted, and then they killed his kids on top of it. It's like, it was just crazy. And so, we can talk about, these difficulties, but ultimately, you know, consciousness is gonna, this is happening. Like I said, Hibernation Festival. If nobody else helps me, I'm still doing Hibernation Festival. It's done. And see, with that level of commitment, now people are coming out of the woodwork because they
Hmm.
know that seriousness. And they know that I put in already $1 million into this area in 27 years of history and lessons learned and developing stakeholders and doing vision sessions and following the book. Even like what Eric, if I don't know if he's going to come on, but like I said, this is recorded. So if Eric comes on, he goes by the book. He's writing the book. He's rehabilitating, whole states. So I mean, he's not into it for his own private interest. From what I see, he's more philanthropic. I'm sure he has other business enterprises like you and me. Even this place here is a business for me. I get Airbnb. That's how my wife survives. I don't use the money myself, but so Eric, the work that Eric does is directly related to Hibernation Festival. And now he's with Bobby Kennedy with the health department, the director of human services. I guess he's not, I don't think he sworn in. Did you hear whether he was actually
Uh,
went past Congress?
who's that, Bobby?
Yeah.
I have not heard.
Yeah. That's an interesting thing because I just read something. I don't know whether it's true or not, but his cousin, John F. Kennedy's daughter, what is it, Catherine? Is it Catherine? I guess she knows Bobby very well because they were cousins. They grew up, and she just blasted that guy. Oh my
Oh,
God, just tore him to smithereens.
oh, God. Oh, oh,
Right,
man.
right. Your own family. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know what some of the stuff that was, and she said she was firsthand. It was like in her family, in her house and stuff. So you got to take it for what it is. I don't think that she was paid for any of that. It would be really, really sad if, as a woman, that she would do bend over like that, if or a puppet, be a puppeteer. But anyways, Eric is very close with a program called Victory Gardens, and Victory Gardens is a long-standing, I believe it was the Kennedy administration or even before, around World War II, is this idea of creating these community garden spaces for beautification of areas basically that they bombed the hell out of all around the world. So they wanted to go around the world and build these uh, they I don't think they were called the USA Victory Gardens. That would be kind of a kind of a pie in the face type of activity. But right now, Eric in a group I mentioned to you, Jacqueline, who's the director of Health Revolution Alliance, I believe, or something like that. Eric can mention a little bit more how Jacqueline and Paul come into it. Paul is like the CFO of the work that they do. So he's a venture capitalist. So he knows the financial markets. He knows how to make investment in startups and stuff like that. So that's why Eric is really this interview, although it didn't happen, at least we're addressing Eric and Jacqueline and Paul now. And we understand the nature of the Appalachian Mountains and the issues with mining operations, which specifically in Pennsylvania, I forget which it's one of the mining communities in Pennsylvania. We on this show here, one of the episodes in the beginning, we talked about the quantum physicist Dr. David Bohm and how he was excommunicated from Congress and out of the United States and basically thrown out, and he came here to Brazil. And Dr. David Bohm is directly connected with the mines. He came from a mining family in Pennsylvania. That's why I'm mentioning Dr. Boehm, because this is how we weave, really. There's no way that, Sean, we can have this type of intelligence without being open and being in the moment. This doesn't happen. So we're weaving this as a fabric. So when we talk to Eric, we're prepared. We already know the entanglement. We already know the potential, or at least our perspective of what that potential is, because he has other objectives and other missions, and so do you. And so do I, and anyone listening here. This is not like the creation of some like world resistance movement or something, or revolution. This is what I say is say no to revolution and say yes to evolution. Because when we evolve, you don't need to do anything else. There's no more war. There's no more injustice. The judicial system is open, honest. If somebody does commit something, the peers and the community, they don't burn them in the town square. Thank God, we do have standards, but we're not going to allow any people in the world to do anything that's not human and have civil rights and social justice and universal rights and those things that we talk about, ethics and morality. And a lot of the times people say, "Oh, those are just words." They're not. The U.S. Constitution are not just words. It took a lot of pain and suffering and bloodshed to get those words on paper, with ink and stuff, not like a computer like what we do. This is a walk in the park, what we're doing, Sean, compared to the day when we had typewriters and I didn't know how to type. So I was like a chicken. I was pecking at the, thank God I don't do that anymore. Now all of that pecking actually works in my favor because these phones require that you do the peck. You can't do like a regular, pretty much. I mean, some people have little tiny fingers, I guess, and they can, or their fingernails or something, but I can't do that. I peck and I move quick. And so we have the ability to be a whole enterprise ourselves. We don't need, like a SpaceX or any industry. We can create micro industries and micro products and have some like franchise protection so that other people don't take your idea. And that's the big issue here locally for me. I see it all the time, Sean, in the 15 beaches that go along the coast. They're all beautiful, but each one of them is different because the mountains separate you. So you can't go like from one beach to the other. You got to go around the hill and stuff. It takes time. You got to get parking and you got to do all of that. But really over here, it's about cannibals. Literally, they eat people like the Indians. But that's not the cannibalization I'm talking about. I'm talking about the cannibalization of creativity. If you open like a restaurant and you're successful even like a week later, there's a restaurant across the street. It's worse than like McDonald's and Burger King and that big fight like for market share. Over here, they just sabotage everybody. And then you go down the street and they make investment, stupid investment. Nobody's in the restaurant. There's like two people in the restaurant. They have seats for 150. And so basically the community here, it just is not balanced. They're not critically thinking. They're I don't think they're too corrupt that they're not intelligent enough to surrender. I guess is they need to surrender. We're not going to stop. Like I said, I'm not going to stop. I have a whole model. One of the contacts I sent to you, it's an interesting person. It was Dr. Jacques Fresco with the Venus Project. Did you get a chance to look at that website?
I
And
did
also,
not.
We spoke with Haricot, who was indirectly
Yes,
with the
yes,
Venus
yes.
Project. But for people, Dr. Jacques Fresco described archetypes in life. And specifically, one area he talked about people that I would consider myself and yourself, Sean, are social architects, social architect. And that definition is somebody that has the ability to work with tangible and intangible. And right now, what we're working on with this podcast is the intangible. I mean, behind you and in your office, in your studio there, you have the tangible stuff. So we don't need to replicate that. You already have that infrastructure. And now we know it's all virtual. So basically, what I would like to propose openly here to you and to other people as well, because these are partnerships we're trying to create. You and I just met, and we never talked about exchanging money or anything, and we won't. The first thing we need to come to terms is like infrastructure, logistics, practicality, feasibility. We're mentioning all these people, Dr. Sandra Rose Michael and Tony Robbins, and how to get even Mel Carmine back involved and get,
You know,
Dan Wint
Yeah,
and
and
do all.
it's funny. I just talked to Mel. I've been on the phone with Mel back and forth 3 or 4 times in the last couple of days, and Mel would love to jump on. I actually talked to Dan Winter yesterday. A lot of new, exciting stuff going on with Dan, and I connected Dan with Soleil. So Dan's going to get Soleil on his podcast, and I also connected Roshan with Soleil. So Roshan, Soleil, and them up in Lithuania. And then today I'm going to get the podcast published with Jesse Hall with his show, The Missing Link, and then they're going to get connected with Soleil. So like when you start talking about weaving and everything, we're really starting to weave a lot of people together all over the world, a lot of like-minded people. And these are all people that we are going to have on the podcast. So I can reach out to Mel and get Mel on. He would love to come on. And Dan is going to check back with me for a time, possibly next week, that he can get on. And then, I can also work on my end to try to get Dr. Sandra Rose Michael on, who I love the whole story with her. It's, like with all of us, there's a story. You look at the technology, and you look at the end product, but when you hear the story, even with Tony Robbins, the thing I love the most about Tony Robbins isn't who he is now, it's who he was and who he made himself into. There's a great story with Tony when he was very destitute, and he literally, it's one of the best videos. I don't listen to the success videos. I listen to the videos when they were just getting the snot beat out of them, and somehow they pushed through and persevered. That's what because I already know where the end story's going with this whole thing. I know where he's at now. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? But it's
yeah,
like everybody has those moments of truth where they're just getting the snot beat out of them, and they're in these moments of like make it or break it, and it's really what they decide to do and how they operate from that position. And
right,
one of the best stories with Tony is that he's living in Venice. He's got like $7 in his pocket, and this is back probably in the 90s, so $7 is probably worth 25 bucks, who knows. And he's having dinner, and he's like, I'm just gonna go get something to eat, and he's feeling down on his luck. He goes into this restaurant. There's this little kid, man, like maybe 5, 6, 7 years old, and he's taking his mom out to dinner for like Mother's Day or something. and he's getting the seat for his mom and he's ordering the stuff for his mom and he's all dressed up as a little kid. And Tony looks at this little kid and goes, "Man, you got so much class. Like I am so like inspired by you and the whole thing." And he takes every penny, every dollar bill in his pocket and gives it to the kid and goes, "This is from me." And just that moment where he felt that was the right thing to do, and he wasn't thinking about how am I going to eat. He wasn't thinking about anything other than being in the moment and seeing that situation and going, I'm going to reward this young man for being highly respectful and being like the man that that everybody aspires to be, but at 7 years old. And he's walking home and he's like, wow, I just did that. I just gave away everything I had. And then he comes home and unexpectedly some check is in the mail, a check he didn't even know was coming. It was like somebody owed him money from 2 years prior, a year prior, and it just happened to come in. And it just was that transition, just that bridge to the next month to get his rent paid, just that transition to get that next bill paid. But in the moment and when that happened, he never he did the right thing, right? And so now Tony's famous and Tony's great, but I don't look at that. I look at entrepreneurs that have really been down in the low places and how they push through, because every single one of us has. And I want to hear the story about what happened when this was really, and how did I dig myself out shovelful by shovelful, right? I know where the whole thing goes. I know it's successful. I love Tony. I love what he stands for. I love everything about him. But I love the fact that Tony made it happen. Tony created his reality. Tony overcame a lot, like even with his businesses. He went into 50, 70, maybe $100 million in debt, taking on a bad partner and then saying, wow, man, I'm really upside down. I got to figure this out. And John Asseroff, who's from The Secret, who's another San Diego guy, lives in Del Mar, and same thing, got himself in with some bad business partners, bad business situation, got himself upside down 10, 20, 30, 50 million, whatever it was. And these guys figured out a way to turn it around. Like this isn't a Cinderella story where, a pot of gold dropped out of the sky, hit them in the head, and they just went from, just stand on the street to having 100 mil. These are all people that had a hope, that had a dream, that really got some stuff thrown at them, that really put them in a position where they had to really grind and really push through and persevere and have that mental fortitude and that determination and that dream, and that ability to just see through to the end. And as an entrepreneur and a business person, I love that. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear the story of Joe Dispenza. Not, well, I love Joe. I was just listening to Joe Dispenza, but I love the story when Joe's in bed and his back is broke and they're telling him this is how it's going to be and you need to accept this reality. And Joe says, no, this is not how it's going to be. And I will overcome this diagnosis that you give me. I will walk again. I will be healthy. I will do this. And it's the story of how these people have pushed through everything. And we all deal with that at some level. Every one of us has, that pit that we've fallen into that we've got to get ourselves out of, whether it's mentally, physically, spiritually, economically, whatever it is. But there comes a point in time where if it's going to be, it's going to be because of me. And I got to see my way through this, and I got to figure out, sometimes it's just how do I get to the next step? How do I get to the next 24 hours? How do I get through the rest of this day? What is my game plan for getting through next week? How am I going to accomplish this? And there's a lot of faith. There's a lot of positive, things that you put into it, because you do at some point create your own reality. So having that goal, having that dream, and not losing vision of that, and plowing through all the day-to-day stuff that might come about that. I think, when we start talking, and I know Dr. Sandra Rose Michael because I've met with her, and she's getting these downloads from the Pleiadians or somewhere. She's a single mom with very little money. She's got 3 kids, and she doesn't have a huge background with like technology. And they say, you're going to create this technology and you're going to make this EE system and you're going to do all this. And she's thinking, okay, clearly you've got the wrong person here, right? And then it gets into some of these relationships she had with Dr. Fred Bell, who I've talked to you about. He was out of Laguna, brilliant guy. But she did it, somehow, some way she did it. And, so those are the things that I really find inspiring. And, this whole channel and everything we're doing is not only getting out and letting these people kind of disseminate and give their own stories and tell their own tale, but also then to weave us all together into ways that we can help each other grow the channel and grow the vibration here on the planet.
Grow, grow, grow. Win, win, win. That's what we want. I
That's
mean, we're
it.
gonna. I mean, things grow and then they die, and it's a cycle. That's what Eric Mathis, who's supposed to be on today's show. We're going to reschedule for anyone interested. You can do your own research on Eric Mathis. That's Mathis. I know him through the Victory Gardens, but he has on YouTube, if you do J. Eric Mathis, you'll see he's got 3 or 4. And that's how I did that study. And that's what really, Sean, that I'm hoping that we can elevate the work that we're doing and really create that library. So when we have these guests on, it's not just a random, link on the bottom or whatever. It's actually a connection so that people listening, when they spend 1 hour listening to like Eric, you and I, if they want to go and then listen to individually one of us because there's something that you said or like the med bed or whatever product that comes up, that's the idea. We're self-promoting. We have our own enterprises, and then we have our collective, the solidarity economy. And that's what Eric really focuses on, that community development, the solidarity, because that is the wholeness. And with the wholeness, that is 0.00 absolute. It's whole. There's nothing there. So it's the whole of nothing. And so it's right now we're going on the top of the hour. But I wanted to just mention a little towards the end here to close. I sent you Antenna One,
Yes.
antena1.com.br. So that's an internet radio station. Antenna we call it Antenna or one. People in the United States would just go Antenna One or just say one. Did you listen to one today? And so this is a broadcast channel from Sao Paulo, which is only about 2 hours, very close, just over the mountains. Takes 2 hours because you got to go way over the mountains. It's crazy. It's like Hawaii, very mountainous area here, right down to the ocean. Anyways, Antenna FM 94.7 out of Sao Paulo is actually owned by, from what I understand, and this took a lot of digging. It wasn't like open to like public. The Vatican Church in Rome, Italy, are the actual owners of this radio station, which is the #1 music radio with classic rock, 70s, 80s, and popular music. And it's all in English. The music are all pretty much, I mean, once in a while they play a French song or, I'm saying all because you're going to listen when you tune in to antena1.com.br. There's a link, you go live. You can download the applicativo. It's easier. That way you don't have to go all the time to that link because you have to scroll down the website page a little bit to get to that live link, just like any other internet radio signal. But what's interesting, Sean, is that we utilize this FM signal, and that's how we distribute that energy through the quantum wave. We actually embed unconditional love signal, which is not a 447 hertz signal. It's actually the 0 point signal. It's before the identifier of 1. So it doesn't even have 0.1 hertz. There's no instrument that can measure the actual sensitivity of 0.00 absolute. It will never exist. It's theoretically impossible. So basically what I'm saying to you and people listening to this, related to the Hibernation Festival, this is a localized festival where this radio FM Antenna One is broadcasted here, and we receive it on the island. The local beach communities have difficulty receiving the signal. So the idea for this Hibernation Festival is actually deflect or reflect that signal and push it back into the mountains and team up with a local community radio station, which is, in my opinion, the solution for how we maintain our first right amendments is through local community radio. We have many, many radio stations in Sao Paulo. And Antenna One, you would think would be the #1 radio station. They're actually #4. So we have measurements and we have metrics. So if we do this hibernation event and we tell people that they internationally, they can go into the internet web and they can see the programming that we're working on live. And then when we have interviews, you shut off the radio signal and you go into the interview. And once the interview's over, you go back into the radio signal. Because then what we do is we cover our local community here and we cover the globe, the whole globe. But the benefit really is to be local. So the biofreedom system or service is a localized living matrix, and it broadcasts a radio signal. The WIN network, the World Impact News Network, is actually broadcasted from here through the FM signal of Antenna And then we piggyback the internet, but we only have one link that goes up and down for the internet. So when the cooperative, when people go into the applicativo for the like hibernation festival to make a reservation, find information or whatever, when they go into that, they actually are connecting directly into that wave, that vibration of music, of I'm not saying it's all joyful, it's love music on Antenna So it's really, that's why the unconditional love works so easy. And the signal is really, it's pretty much there. And people remember these songs. That's what really is emotionally connected. These are, you'll listen, if you tune in after we get off, even there in your studio, if it's a good channel, Sean, because it's all music in English that you know, but when they go to commercials, it's Portuguese. And it's very rare that they go to commercials. So, you know, people here locally are saying, over our dead body, we're not playing some American music all the time. Like my proposal is 24/7. That's the World Impact News programming. And how do we maintain 24/7 is we just, when we're off of the live system, we just play the radio. And with that radio, now we're impulsing the unconditional love. And it also has online, people can be asking questions and submitting in, you know, suggestions and whatever. So even when we're offline, there's a lot of interaction. But it's the music basically is what I'm saying that connects us all. And we all have a song. It's not a song that's already been written. You are writing your song. It's actually already been written in the past, you know, or in the future. Most of us in the past, we just don't remember it. And so we know we have a very unique signal. Everyone is an independent antenna one. We all are antenna one. We all are the center of the universe, and that's what connects us. How you broadcast your signal outward, that is up to you. But if you broadcast for evil and you go outward to try to manipulate people and to abuse people and traffic them or do whatever, like crazy stuff, the system, it doesn't allow that because it already knows that that's what you're going to do. So the system calls you up and says, Sean, be careful. And then you sit there and you go, how did you know I was just going to do that? You know, see, evil, when people are doing evil acts, when you're at 0.00 absolute, you see the shadow before you see the object. So outside of 0.00 absolute is darkness. So really the evil you can't really even see. But when it becomes in your energy field, if your energy is like monsters and all sorts of horror, you know, that's what you're going to reflect because you're really not at 0.00 absolute. You're in the darkness, you know, and you're fearful. And so what I'm saying about the event, the Hibernation Festival, if we can come together on these next few shows, and it's all working itself out. If we come together, Sean, there's a possibility that I would like to propose to you that this island could be featured as the base camp for the festival. And we could actually go and do like a makeover here. Like I'm already doing it. I spent $20,000 over the last, that's a lot of money. That's about 100,000 reais. I repaired the house. My wife did all of this actually. I say it wasn't me. I was lazy. Like I say, I don't do anything. But we are prepared. And when we come to that February 21st, by the way, 21 is the lucky day for me. 21 is 21. You got a 21 all the time in the casino, you're good to go. And so what I would propose is that we're already doing like a daily show. So during the month of February, coming up this on Saturday is February 1st. We think about, and it's not up to you to do this because you're already doing what you can do. You don't need to do any more. We need to fill that calendar for the other 24 or 23 windows. And so I can actually participate maybe in one additional I could be with you and doing one independent. And then also other people, or even Riley or other people on your staff. If you're busy, you stay on that schedule and it's a live stream. So the topic you might not, they might not be prepared, but they need to be in the moment. And if we
Yeah.
keep everyone in the moment, everyone has exactly what needs to be said at the moment it needs to be said. We don't have to choreograph and do anything special. Just be in the moment. So in the process of the Hibernation Festival, the idea is when that week is over on March 1st, that's Carnival week. We're going to get a lot of people that are going to come here because the proposal is on that 8-day, 7-night series is to video record and record all of what we're doing. That's a lot of content. 24 times 8 is a lot of hours. And so if we take that content and we can pare it down into like mini docs and clips and do it professionally, do it very quickly, like overwhelming people with like Elon Musk, for example, there's periods where when I go on Facebook, 20% of all of the listings are like his work, it seems. I don't know whether he pays for that or whether they just do it because it drives people to Facebook. So, when people have money, they don't have to pay for things like that. It's when you don't have money that they want you to pay because you're really worthless in their mind. You're not driving anything to Facebook. And so the idea with the medical equipment, if we can go to existing vendors that you're working with and also products, if any of that product is being distributed already in Latin America, it'd be very important information. Like what is your evaluation of this as a market? I don't know if you already have like a network of distributors and you're dealing with these things like logistics in Latin America to open up Latin America. So not only you're the U.S. MedBed distributor, you're also all of the Americas. You could cover the whole world. And so we can offer you a base here, and that is for no cost. Like right now, I'm not saying you have to make an investment. The base is a temporary base. These kiosks are basically on a rental, just like a hotel room. So if you have a vendor that wants to rent one of the kiosks, for the annual festival, it's a 1 week, 8-day, 7-night. Some of the people are going to want all 8 days. They're going to want to be here and to have live audience. We're going to limit to about 50 people that will be able to come. And as they come, they go, they move. So during the day, part of what I'm dealing with is logistics, and the boat transportation is number one. How do we actually navigate? It's a very simple area. Like I said, the road is only one road that goes along the mountains, but the boats are difficult because there's no real marinas. They don't have proper access to the rivers, and they don't do anything to prepare for the type of tourism that we're talking about. That's why the influence here with like Eric and the work he's doing with regional planning is important. If he can come in with Victory Gardens, basically here on High Brazil Island, where the festival home base would be located, we would create a Victory Garden. And part of this island would be like Camp David, Brazil. So we would be branding that connection with the United States and Brazil. This to me is like an Ellis Island, a gateway. So in the future, people will come into the portal and follow this type of these episodes with the World Impact News. There's resources, there's job opportunities, there's all sorts of innovation, creativity, motivation, solidarity. And so that's the overall picture is that this event could be something that is a legacy, like a date with destiny. And we can, even if Tony doesn't come in, we could play a couple of clips, and we could promote Tony. I'm not going to say anything negative. Why would he want to get an attorney to put a hush order on me or, some type of legal or anybody? That's the whole point. When companies and people are advertising on the internet, that's public data. You got to kind of expect that I'm going to call you if you put your phone number and your email address. And I would think that somebody like you, Sean, would be jumping up and down and say, this guy wants to be, I didn't say this directly, but I can be like the gateway for the distribution into Latin America. I wouldn't do that directly. It would be a whole team. But that's where the integration would come in, and you don't have to work at it. It's just plug and run. And if you want to unplug and you want to be mobile, scalable and portable, you have that ability. But basically, this island could be an expo, an outdoor immersion, natural healing center, wellness center that has these scheduled events periodically. We do a podcast live here. We have the Multimedia Center, the Performing Arts Center, and things of that nature. So without any real cost on your part, let me ask you: do you distribute in Latin America? Do you have a network?
So the medical equipment sales, we do Latin America, like we do stuff into Honduras and various parts. I've done stuff down into Argentina. I've shipped a lot of stuff into Latin America, but it's a growing market. And the biggest part of Latin America sales has to do with having inventory available in Latin America, because the biggest challenge with buying a lot of this equipment is trying to get people into the States to put eyes on it. A lot of times they will do a trip initially to come meet us, meet the facility, see what we do, and then we'll be, business partners for life. But to get those new clients in is difficult because it's a big jump. You're sending a lot of money to people overseas you haven't met personally. And you want to see what you're getting. There's a lot of trust, obviously, that's involved. But I think having a drop spot, whether it's in Panama, or whether it's in a Honduras, or whether it's a part of Latin America where you can get inventory down there, where people in Latin America can stay in Latin America to buy and pick stuff up. That's when it really starts taking off. The med bed and the wellness technology is a whole different thing. And that's really not, it hasn't expanded really much down there. Brazil is in many ways a very difficult country to work with because they really won't bring anything into the country if it's not brand new. So refurbished equipment is not easy to get in the country. They don't want it. And for anything that I've sent into Brazil, the tariffs there are extremely high, and the amount of money you pay to bring stuff in, from an economic standpoint, can have its own challenges. But with all that being said, it's going to happen, and where there's a will, there's a way. And so it's just a matter of finding out the right thing at the right time. I think the wellness technology is for Brazil is really where the future is. So, some of the medical equipment with, surgical equipment, exam room equipment, all that, that to me isn't where the future is right now. It's more with the wellness technology. And we'll probably have to wrap this up because I have some people coming in, but I do want to just put a little teaser out there that we have got some amazing new technology, real medbed type technology that is going to be announced next week. We'll announce it here. Um, I want to try to get Dan on the podcast to actually talk about that, because in Dan's own words, this technology is so powerful, it literally can open up a Stargate. And when I was talking to Dan yesterday, I said, Dan, when that Stargate opens up and I jump through, just let everybody know it was a great ride here on planet Earth. I'll be back sometime, somewhere, maybe in the future. I'm not sure, but hey, God bless you guys. Hey, it's been a great run, and I'm just going to jump off through the Stargate up to Venus or wherever it's going, and I'll circle back and go from there. I'll take all the episodes and bring them out, somewhere out in the galaxy, and let those get played with all of our off-planet friends. But with that being said, is there anything you want to say to wrap it up, and then we'll wrap up our episode today, get it up and running, and obviously promote the festival, promote anybody who wants to participate, sponsorship, and then work with seeing if we can get Tony, get Dr. Sandra, and get some more of these people we're talking about, and work with Eric, talk more about his project, get him on as well.
Yeah, it's all coming together nicely. Thanks, Sean. Just in a closing, anyone listening, this is an open invitation. If you have any interest or even no interest, and maybe a question or whatever, comment, please reach out. This event in February 21st to March 1st is, for me, a very, I guess, critical milestone. 27 years, Sean, doing this work. I am ready to reinvent. And so we do need closure with what we're doing in our lives. As passionate as I am, and I'm going to continue this. This WIN network, the World Impact News Network, is very important because of the communication program and service that we offer is not being offered by anybody. and they cannot stop it. There are no licensing agreements for the fifth dimension. There's no signal. They can't
Right.
measure it. But the end result is the message, and they can't get the end. By the time they get to the end, there's a new beginning. And so the technology that we're talking about is real. Uh, let's continue to. Let me just mention a couple of interviews coming up on Saturday. There's a gentleman, Victor Hugo, which I mentioned at 10. It would be 10 Eastern time. And then the second, we don't normally double up on interviews, but I feel really compelled to get Fabiano Diaz on this Saturday. And I say that, first of all, the conversation with Victor Hugo is going to be mind-boggling. And he is considered the Andy Warhol of the modern century, the modern era. So Andy Warhol was all about freedom of speech, and everyone has a 5-minute fame. You know, you have 5 minutes to stand on a soapbox and actually present yourself. And it's in our world, 5 minutes is like a million light years. You know, if you get 20 seconds with somebody, you're freaking lucky. And if it's actually an ability for you to really express where you can be heard and reach the mass market, like we're talking about, 1 million, 1 billion, and 1.5 billion type of people with the WIN network, that's what we're talking about, is the empowerment. So Victor Hugo is coming in. And I don't know him that well, but after Saturday in the conversation, people are going to witness, how do you negotiate a deal? Because by the time we get off that call, if Victor doesn't say yes, like thumbs up, well, I'm doing it, there's other Victor Hugos. There's other Sean Callahans. There's other David Ferdinands. You know, this process and evolution has its own flow, its own momentum. I mean, we are servants. Each of us have a particular soul contract and a purpose and a mission. But collectively, if we come to 0.00 absolute, which is no conditions, that's where we meet each other. So everyone is individual, but collectively we are one. And so I'm going to end it with that. Lots going on. Try to tune in. One comment, Sean. Jesse Howe broadcasts live, and it's a little bit different than our current situation. With Jesse, he kind of goes in and out with the audience and really brings in some pretty prevalent questions. So I don't know if eventually we could
I
go to
do
that.
want to start going live. I do want to start doing lives. I just got to set up either Streamboat or StreamYard or something that we can do that with. I've tried using it. I just got to get familiar with it. The hardest challenge I found was trying to get other people in on the calls and figuring out how you invite them in and get that done. So I will work on that, because doing these lives and just having it go right up is a lot easier than, taking it and doing all that. So David, with that being said, man, thank you so much for your time today. Another great episode, and we'll catch up with everybody same time, same place tomorrow.
Ciao.